Hi, I'm Lauren, and welcome to Whims and Honey Knits podcast. I just wanted to first say thank you so much for all of your sweet comments and for supporting my channel and my previous videos. It was such a sweet experience to connect with so many of you and to hear more about some of you guys who are watching and hear where you're from or connecting with those of you who have the same name as my daughters. That was really fun. And connecting with those of you who are also believers and Christ followers. So thank you so much for your encouragement and for your kind words and interacting with me in that way. I have had such a fun time reading them and responding to them, and I hope that this can be a space that encourages you as well. And I look forward to doing a lot more videos. My goal is to hopefully be posting a podcast episode once a month as well as a vlog, and then maybe if I have extra time, doing little extra videos of some sort as I feel led or as I feel inspired to share. So to start off the year for 2025, this is my first completed finished object, and it is the Anna's Summer Cardigan by Petite Knit. I definitely did my own variation of it by, instead of doing the little yarn over lace details, I ended up doing these little pink details as a Valentine's themed cardigan for my daughter Claire, who is 27 months old. I decided to do a 1 to 2 year old size because Claire is more on the petite end, and it did end up fitting her well. I think it'll probably last her through the spring at least, with it being like little short sleeves, and the length feels pretty comfortable on her right now. We are also going to Florida soon, so I'm excited for her to be able to wear this just in case it's chillier in the evening, but still have short sleeves so she doesn't obviously get hot in wool. So something about this cardigan, my inspiration was for these little details to look like little hearts, little pink hearts. And I had this photo I found on Pinterest that seemed like a really cute idea for the cardigan. It was like my original inspo for it. And what I didn't realize is that cardigan is probably not hand knit, but the details definitely, okay, so the little pink details are they're upside down if they were to be hearts, which is fine. Like the little pink details are still super cute and I love how it turned out. But I realized in order for the stockinette, the V's to be going up, like facing up in a heart shape, I would have had to do a bottom up construction of the sweater. So I would have had to start from the bottom and work my way up. And the Anna's Summer Cardigan is top down. So I just didn't think about that. And once I got into the color work, at some point I was like, oh, these are not going to be, little heart shapes. They're going to be like face down. Still, I still love it and it's still cute, but it was just a slight difference from what I expected it to be. And I also started this. I do not do well starting projects when I am distracted. I can't focus on a pattern. I can't multitask when it comes to knitting. I've realized I have to be very focused on the pattern that I'm starting, at least at the very beginning, or if it's something more complex that I'm trying to complete. That's probably true for most knitters. But I tend to think that I can be social or watch TV and focus on that while also starting projects, and I tend to always have mistakes when I do that. So for this one, when I started it, I think I mentioned in the last vlog, but I I watched the playoff game. There were two back-to-back playoff games 2 weeks before the Super Bowl when I cast this on. I was at my grandma's house and we were having a little family get together because my cousin who lives in Pennsylvania was in town, and she only comes in town every so often, maybe once a year or so. And so it was really, really great catching up with her. But I was casting this on and catching up with her and watching the playoff game, and I started to place my markers for the raglan increases on this. And this, I don't know if you could tell when I held it closer, but this is not a typical raglan increase style. So you can see that instead, when I got started while being very distracted, I was doing the increases like they started separating out. Instead of doing it on each side of the stitch, I was doing it on the inside of the two markers each time. So I was doing it, yeah, I don't know if that is making sense, but I basically was just doing it going out instead of like saddling the same stitch. And so it has this interesting construction, which it turned out fine. And I was on a deadline for Valentine's Day to get it done, so I didn't rip it back. But you can see the increases all are like along this area right here. And then the back has these two increased lines, which this is just wrinkled from how it was sitting. But when I blocked it, all of the like weird lumpiness came out, thankfully. But yeah, the two lines that go straight here and then they go like along here. So that was my mistake from just simply getting so excited to like cast something on and being okay with doing it while I was like very much having my attention on more than one thing. And I'm thankful it turned out okay. And I really am fine with how it turned out. I like the look of it. I would have preferred a more traditional raglan style, I think. Um, However, you know, with it being something that I was like knitting for the sake of Valentine's Day and just wanting to have something like a project to work on, it definitely challenged me in the sense that I just felt like I couldn't give it the time and energy that I wanted to. And I felt like I was knitting like maybe with less joy because I had this like deadline of like wanting to get it done by Valentine's Day. I've realized that knitting to me is just so much more enjoyable when I just do it for just the pleasure of knitting and enjoyment of it instead of by like a time frame or like trying to do something quick. Um, it just becomes kind of more of like a chore to me. And I just keep like wanting to get it done and being like more eager for that than actually like the enjoyment of like, you know, putting my best work into a piece. So that's what I learned about myself because usually I don't put deadlines on any of my knitting. So I'm thankful that it still turned out okay with having made that huge mistake with the increases. And I chose these little buttons. I think I got them a long time ago from a craft store. They're just little wooden buttons. Um, but I think they turned out cute with this style of sweater. And I'll show a picture of Claire wearing it. We went out to this cute little Louisiana style hole in the wall kind of restaurant. It's been our tradition for 5 years now to go there for Valentine's Day. So Drew has taken me there before we even had the girls, and we have gone there, yeah, for the last 5 years. So Claire got to wear it out, and it hadn't been blocked yet, but I finally blocked it the next day, and I'm excited for her to wear it, get some more use out of it this spring, hopefully, and definitely when we go to Florida soon. Just to share the yarn that I used. This is the Sorella yarn that I got from her Oopsie sale. It's in the color terracotta. It's not true to the true terracotta that she's made because obviously this was like an Oopsie color. So I don't think that this is like exact, but that's the color I used for the little pink stitches. And then for the rest of the cardigan, I used about 1.5 skeins of the Patons wool worsted yarn from Michaels. But now I have more yarn in my stash, so I have no idea what to use this for. I may make Elsie a little hat because I think she's outgrown all of the hats I've knit her, so I might do something like that. Or I could potentially make a hat to go with this with little pink stitches in it. So still trying to decide what I'm going to use my leftover yarn for. I also decided on doing short sleeves last minute because I was totally running out of time to complete this by Valentine's Day. And I was going to originally do it long sleeve, but because I was running out of time and I really wanted Claire to wear this on Valentine's Day, I had this inspiration picture in my Pinterest as well of the Anna summer cardigan in short sleeve. And so I just rolled with it and decided to do the short sleeve version of this cardigan. So I am still very happy with how it turned out. I think I actually, after seeing it on Claire, like it better short sleeve than I expected. I also realized that The sleeves probably would have been my favorite part to do had I had enough time to complete them before Valentine's Day. But I think what just kept making this project feel like it was taking forever is I really wasn't picking it up very often because this cardigan is knit flat and I just don't love purling. And I know that's just a part of knitting, but purling slows me down so much. So I was just kind of sick of it and I just did not pick it up. And between that and the deadline and just feeling like uninspired maybe a little bit halfway through the project, like once I got to like this part of the body, it felt like this rest of the body just took forever. And honestly, I probably would have enjoyed the sleeves because they would be on DPN, so it would have been in the round. Um, but I ran out of time, so I didn't get to that part. I'm definitely ready for something more in the round and just like stockinette, something really like this is simple, but there was color work and purling and just it kind of felt like it wasn't like a steady. I didn't feel like I just kept making great progress with it. Felt kind of forced. So I'm definitely excited to start something new, something maybe a little more simple and quick and enjoyable with no deadline. Okay, so now moving on to a work in progress. I was hoping this would be a finished object, but I ran out of yarn and I am still waiting on that yarn to come in. So this is the Pearls on a String sweater that I mentioned. I've mentioned this one a lot, so probably sick of hearing about it, but I did want to mention some of the experiences I've been having with this sweater. So I mentioned at one point that I had to rip it back multiple times and restart. And I really wasn't that discouraged by it because this is a very, this was like knitting up very quick for me. And I didn't feel like between the weight gauge and the needle size I was using and how easy all the stockinette is, like it was in the round the whole time, it just didn't feel that much like a chore to like rip it back and start over. So I was totally fine with that. But I think I mentioned one of the times was because of a dropped stitch or two that happened on DPNs. And I got like my wrap and turns kind of screwed up from dropping a stitch or two. The next time I did it, I did all of my short rows. They were the wrap and turn short rows. And I felt like I had done such a careful job of making sure they looked really nice and orderly and clean. And I did it during like a good nap time where I wasn't interrupted at all. However, I tend to be the kind of knitter that thinks that when my knitting has something like an imperfection in it, I tend to always think it's because I'm lacking experience or I just didn't understand what I did there. But this tends to be a common problem of having this little hole that happens with either German short rows or the wrap and turn short rows, and it's because those techniques tend to do best flat knitting is what I found. And when you're knitting in the round, you're purling one side of the short rows. And so on your last wrap and turn or German short row, you end up having like a little hole. Let me see if I can find it. You end up having like a little hole. You can see it right here. And I've had this happen with multiple projects where I have done short rows. I've had like little holes in my knitting. And I actually found that that was a very common problem with short rows. And it's funny that when I was doing this, I actually have also been reading this book called Patty Lyon's Knitting Bag of Tricks. And I definitely recommend this book if you even are a pretty experienced knitter. This I've learned so much from this book, and it makes it so easy to break down like tips and tricks and like basically the theory behind knitting, which sounds kind of boring, but she's honestly a very entertaining author. And I've loved reading this book. I got it for Christmas actually, and I liked it so much. I recommended it to our local library, and they acquired it so other knitters in the community can read it. But she has a tip in here about short rows, and it's a lot to explain. It's about 2 or 3 pages worth that she talks about in here. So I'm just gonna say, if you have that issue with getting a hole in your knitting when you're doing like short rows, It might be that doing short rows in the round tends to leave space for a hole when you do the last wrap and turn on a wrong side versus a right side. And anyway, Patty in this book explains how you can avoid having those holes in your German or um, in your wrap and turn short rows. So either maybe look into this book, or you might be able to find a resource online that could explain that better. But it was definitely an aha moment for me in my knitting that it's not actually me that keeps making these holes when I do short rows. It's like part of a lot of patterns like will not tell you that that's what will happen when you're doing these in the round, but there's a way to keep that from happening. So I just wanted to share that because that is something that I have had happen multiple times, and I just assume that like I have no idea what I did wrong and I couldn't figure it out, but I finally figured it out. And maybe that's something you struggle with too sometimes when you're doing short rows. And overall, I'm happy with it. And what I've typically done when I've had this little hole um, from the short rows is I will just add a little extra stitch in the back to make it look nicer. And that'll typically fix it and keep it from looking like a full hole in my knitting. So anyway, this is so close to being done. I just have to finish my ribbing. I ran out of yarn just as I was about to cast off the body, and then I just have the sleeves to do, which honestly, since these are just stockinette and the gauge is pretty big, I think that that'll go really quick once I get the yarn. And I'm really liking how it's looking. I'm excited for Claire to wear this. I knit it in, I think, the 3-year-old or 3 to 4 size, just so she can have it really big and cozy for next winter, like this next fall and winter of this year. So I know that she probably won't wear it once I finish it right away, but it'll just be sitting waiting for her when she can wear it next cold season. So the yarns for the sweater I'm using are the Marisol Llama Una yarn, and I'm using the colorway. I think this one is natural and stone for the bottom. And then I used the Southampton Valley Yarns mohair, and the top, I held it together with this white colorway. And then the bottom part that I used the stone yarn, I held with the same Valley Yarn Southampton mohair in the color acorn. So the acorn is what I ran out of. I got away with a major win at Yarn Chicken because this is all of the mohair I had left when I got done with the baubles on here. So I feel very glad to have not had to buy a whole nother ball of that, a whole nother skein of this mohair. So after going from this, I started this first at the beginning of the year and then cast this on after running out of yarn for Pearls on a String. And I realized that when I was knitting this, I think that this sweater was even less enjoyable when knitting because I realized I used 2 different cords. So for my interchangeable needles, I have a couple black cords that I don't know where I got these. These might have just been extra ones that I ordered at some point. And then these are the Likey interchangeable needles, and they came with these clear interchangeable cords. And then I bought extra black interchangeable cords that were probably like a better price, but they aren't the Likey brand, I'm pretty sure. And what I've realized is these are great for like holding, stitches, putting stitches on hold and keeping them that way. That's what I'm doing right here with the sleeve of this sweater. However, I had another one of these that I used to cast this on, and what I've realized is the Likey brand ones, the base of them, the metal base, is on a swivel. So when I'm knitting, it definitely works with me a little more. Whereas these black ones, they don't, the bottoms do not turn. And so when I was knitting this, I was using that black cord, and it just like wasn't really moving with my hand. It was really like I felt like I was very much having to work against the cord, if that makes sense. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that. That was such an unpleasant experience with knitting. Okay, so some yarn that I recently acquired is I had a Knitting for Olive order, and I was so excited to get it in because I've actually never ordered from Knitting for Olive. I've only ever bought their patterns, and I was really excited. I know I've seen sweaters in person, I've seen their yarn in person, but these colorways, this navy blue and cream, I hadn't actually even seen in person, like at a store. So I was very excited to get them in, and I'm excited to share with you guys what projects I'll be doing with these. So the plan for the mohair and merino navy blue yarns, I'm going to do the Elizabeth blouse by Petite Knit. And I did a gauge swatch already, and I was about one stitch on, one stitch in one row too many when I did the measurement. So my gauge is just slightly small and tight for what the pattern calls for. But then when I went up a needle size, the fabric it was creating was so airy that I just really don't like the fabric it was creating with that needle size. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is use the needles that the pattern suggested that I did the first swatch for, even though I was knitting a little tighter than what the pattern called for. I am thinking that I'll just go either up a full size or do at least a size that would be slightly bigger than my measurements so that, it doesn't become a problem, hopefully. And then I can, determine if the sleeves need a little bit more length or the body needs a little more length because it is a top down construction. So I'm feeling good about that. I'm hoping that it turns out okay. I'm really excited to try working with these yarns more. Obviously, I've done a gauge swatch, but I'm excited to do a full sweater. And I love the idea of having like a little V-neck collar sweater that you can just throw on, and it's like kind of casual, but also kind of looks more put together than maybe some other things in my closet. My inspiration for this sweater came from those Twins Who Knit podcast. I'll link their YouTube channel in the description, but I love watching them, and they come up with such cute pattern and yarn combos for their projects. And I believe Rachel did this same yarn for the Elizabeth blouse. And when I saw it on her, I was like, I need that. I love it. And I had a gift card for Knitting for Olive from Christmas. So that was like an easy decision for me, was to just get this yarn and the Elizabeth blouse I want in my wardrobe. So I'm really excited to cast that on hopefully soon. I've never done a Judy's Magic cast on, and that is what the start of the pattern calls for. So if you have any tips on how to make that more simple or a better experience, please let me know. I will probably just YouTube it or have my friend help me with it who's done it before. As for the cream yarn from Knitting for Olive, I am planning to make Claire the festival dress by Petite Knit as well. I do love Petite Knit patterns, and for this pattern, I'm going to try to use yarn that I already have. So obviously the cream will be the base of the pattern, and then it has a lot of different colored little stripes stitched in throughout every so often down the dress. And so I'm thinking I will use some more of this Sorella yarn, this pink one. If I have enough, I might use a little bit of the blue Knitting for Olive, thinking a little bit of this yellow. As far as the other colors, I'm still deciding, but I'm thinking that I will at least use these three colors because I think they'll look really pretty together with the cream. But I know she uses like 5 colors, I want to say, so I definitely still need to decide on a couple more colors for this pattern, but I don't think I'm going to be starting that one just yet. Another idea I have for the Knitting for Olive cream merino yarn is I mentioned that we're going to Florida in a couple weeks, and I'm thinking I ordered one extra ball than what the festival dress calls for, so I'm thinking that I'm going to maybe make myself a tank top in this color, and I'm hoping that I have enough to do a tank top and a festival dress for Claire. If not, I have a lot of this yarn. I have 3 hanks of this yarn, so I'm thinking that I might do my tank top in this color, but I also really love this color, this yellow, for one of the girls for a project. So I'm still trying to decide. I need to like sit down and determine what I have enough yarn for and then make a decision. Personally, I would really love for my tank top to be cream, just like simple, a basic that I can wear with everything, and then do something for the girls in this really pretty yellow color. It feels very youthful and girly and cute. So that's all that I have to share for today, but thank you so much for watching, and I would love to hear what you've been working on, maybe while watching this podcast. And I've been so encouraged by all of the people in the knitting community here on YouTube that have reached out. So please reach out, and if you enjoyed watching, please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Have a blessed day.